Brazil, Indiana. On March 8, 2007, at approximately 1:11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, I was returning home from lunch and noticed several jets creating contrail in the sky. It was at this point that I noticed a spherical object hovering and bobbing in the NE sky. The object was shining brightly in the blue sky, but I noticed its wobbling. I would often see a dark undercarriage. Additionally, the sphere was moving very slowly and then looked to be stationary. At this point, I pulled my vehicle into the First Baptist Church parking lot and observed the sphere. The parking lot is on the corner of Ridge and Walnut. I was going east on Ridge. Additionally, the object was positioned in the NE sky. Although the sphere might have been a balloon let go, but it seemed somewhat larger and brighter than what one might expect, and something did not seem right about how it wobbled. I exited my vehicle and observed the object for approximately another 3 to 4 minutes. The sphere appeared to be hovering while I looked NE. I continued to walk towards the sphere, hoping to get a better look. Unfortunately, I was not able to find anyone who could also observe this sphere in my general area. At approximately 1:14 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, I noted something shoot off of the sphere. This object seemed to be cylindrical in shape and was wobbling itself, but moved slightly quicker than the original sphere. Within a few seconds, I lost sight of this object, faded out of sight. At approximately 1:16 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, I lost sight of the sphere. I scanned the sky for a few more minutes, but the object was no longer visible. At this point, I returned to my vehicle. At this point, I am unsure of what I witnessed. It was probably terrestrial, but it certainly caught my attention. In fact, it reminded me of the videos of the Mexican UFOs and the grainy footage of military test objects viewed in Florida. If you have any questions, feel free to contact me via phone or mailing, but I would prefer to remain anonymous at this juncture. I was surprised to see the object, but was more curious than frightened. I am sure there is some logical explanation for this event. Thank you, S. Harris.
Brazil, Indiana. This event started on a Sunday night in December of 2006. I was driving home around 9:30 to 10 p.m. from my sister's house on my way home from watching football. I was driving north on a county road and came over a hill and noticed a strange red light moving through the trees at the edge of a field ahead of me. At first I thought it might have been a helicopter hovering, but as I got closer noticed it wasn't making any sound and was much too big to be one. I got close and drove up a hill and looked out my side window, and it was hovering above a house approximately 40 to 50 yards off the ground. I immediately stopped my car in the road and stared at this thing in amazement. After a minute or so, a few other cars stopped and I could see them gazing as well. The triangle appeared to be black in color, with 3 red lights on it, one at each corner. It floated there for a few minutes, making almost no sound at all except for a very low humming sound. It slowly turned sideways and began to slowly fly away. I was holding up traffic at this point, along with other cars, so I decided I would go down the road and turn around and come back. I did so, but when I returned to the site, it was gone. None of the other cars were there either, which I thought was odd. I eventually went home and told others of this event and basically got laughed at. I checked out the internet and local papers for a few days after and couldn't find anything about this. I'm not sure if the other drivers reported this to anyone, but I came across your site and feel obligated to report this strange object. I also have a friend who said he saw a similar triangle-shaped object a few years earlier while driving home at night with his father. I told him my story while fishing with him earlier this summer, and he immediately said, "I saw the same thing." I'm not sure what it was, but if anyone from the Brazil Carbon area has seen this strange thing, please report it. It would make me feel better and maybe less crazy.
The 30th of October 1996, 7:24 p.m. Brazil, Indiana. It was a deep red color and about the size of a softball. I was standing in the front yard when I seen it in the field across the road. It moved very slowly across the tree line. It took about 15 minutes for it to get across.
The 21st of August 1975, 10 p.m. I was eastbound on US 40 between Terre Haute and Brazil late at night. I was with my girlfriend at the time. It was a very clear, bright, cloudless night, one of those where you could see very well without lights. We were just passing the Wagon Wheel restaurant when I noticed a stopped car up ahead across the divided highway. I think it was a station wagon. The driver was outside the car standing in the road facing south. As I said, it was a very bright night. I slowed down and wondered aloud, what was he doing and what was he looking at? I looked up and out of the windshield and saw nothing, but when I looked south out of the passenger window, I saw a circle in the sky. I stopped the car a block or so west of the other car and got out myself and stood in the road beside my car and looked at the circle. When first seen, it was about 30 degrees above the horizon and almost straight south. It was moving north by northeast at a steady pace. As it got closer, I could see a ring of white cloud that seemed to have a dark ring inside the vapor. The vapor seemed to rise from the bottom of the ring and move around the structure along a vertical axis. None of it trailed away, but it did look to move. The object passed overhead at a slight angle to the east of me and moved off to the north. It moved from horizon to horizon in a minute or two at most. My girlfriend was scared and screaming for me to get in the car and leave. I made no attempt to contact the other observer. Several years later, the other fellow wrote down his sighting for a local newspaper article on UFO sightings. At the time, I was a 23-year-old Vietnam veteran who had just finished a tour with the Army Air Defense Command at a missile site in Florida.
The 10th of July 2010, 2:15 a.m. Brazil, Indiana. I stepped out to have a late-night cigarette break in front of my home at approximately 2:15 a.m. After about 2 or 3 minutes, I happened to glance up in the sky just to look at the stars, when I noticed a very strange saucer-shaped craft flying pretty low to the ground. It had a very unusual sequencing light on the front, which lit up from left to right. It started as a blue color, then gradually turned to red, and repeated. It also made no sound whatsoever. I could also see what appeared to be a brightly lit window of some sort on the side of the craft emitting a yellowish light. After it flew over at such a slow speed, I knew if it was an airplane, it would have fell out of the sky, because it was at an almost standstill in the air. About 5 minutes later, I saw an identical craft which was also silent, following almost the same flight path. Needless to say, I was pretty shook up after seeing the second identical craft. I have never seen anything even remotely close to this in the sky. I lost sight of the object after a couple minutes as it glided out of sight over my home.
Carbon, Indiana. My spouse was returning to work after 11:10 a.m. on the 10th of Sept. 2012. She contacted me on the phone after returning to work stating that she had taken pictures, via cell, of something rather strange she spotted while driving on State Road 59 by Forest Park. At first, she thought it might be a blimp that sometimes passes over Brazil, but this did not look like the normal blimp that travels through the area. I looked at the photos and it did not look like the blimp either, but this is not to say it is not. She observed the craft hovering and then moving north of the town of Brazil, Indiana. She took photos on both 59 and by the Hardees, north of the object. We have looked at the photos, but no one is sure what the object might be. You will notice the object below the traffic light and near the power lines in photo 2 to 3 and in the V of 2 trees in the first photo. The object appears like a small white object with a dark bottom.